So, Mélissa, I'm really excited because Congressman Garcia is joining us today.
That's going to be great. I can't wait.
He's the former mayor of
Long Beach,
California. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's the U.S. representative from California's 42nd district. He's been there since 2023. He's actually an immigrant himself from Peru. Mm-hmm. So it'll be really interesting to talk to him about ICE, what's happening there, what he's doing as a congressperson to sort of advocate for immigrant communities. Also the first openly gay immigrant in Congress, which is very cool. He, I think he was undocumented at one point when he first emigrated. So it's a very cool, interesting sort of entree into American politics. What he's sort of working on, I think, will inform how Americans really engage with the news cycle, right? I mean, we're always talking about how can we ensure that people are civically engaged and have real next step action items. I feel like a lot of what's happening in American democracy right now is like, well, it's just terrible and
nothing to do. Just throw your hands up and give up. Yeah.
And I think it'll be cool to kind of talk to him and be able to really say like, hey.
Right. And I love the fact that, I think it also helps when people can see themselves in their elected officials. So the fact that he is an immigrant, the fact that he's out, openly gay, like all those things, I think sort of help put the information out. Right?
I also love a fierce diva who's like, I'm going to let my identity govern how I enter the workplace, I enter, like use my work. I'm sick of this whole, like my life is separate from my job. It ain't. I'm a fierce diva in the courtroom as well as at home. I'm winning arguments in my kitchen.
Are you though? Somebody call Brad. Get Brad on the phone.
I'm getting impeached in my fucking kitchen.
Yeah, get Brad on the phone.
Oh, all right. Congressman.
Guilty.
All right, shut up. Congressman's calling. I got to stop talking about it. Welcome to Brief Recess, Congressman.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Hi, Congressman.
Hi, Congressman.
Thank you for joining us. I know that we actually just got the press release of what you've been working on, of the new legislation. So why don't you take us in of what you've sort of been focused on today, it sounds like.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot going on, and the horrors of the Trump administration never end. Today, we're really focused on and trying to really zero in on just the horrific actions by the administration, certainly Secretary Noam, Stephen Miller, and what's happening with ICE across the country. There are two things that we're looking at right now. One is we've all been reading the reports of the now upwards of 170 U.S. citizens that have now been detained, in many cases sent to these facilities by ICE and by other federal agents, and who essentially have stories of being in the centers for days and days without any access to lawyers or family because they didn't have their ID. And these are U.S. citizens who are being targeted, racially profiled because of the color of their skin. And we know that now if ICE is doing this to U.S. citizens, you can imagine how others are being treated at these centers and facilities. And so we have a broad investigation going right now through oversight into Christina Noam, into their actions across the country. But we're also especially partnering with the Senate, and the Senate's oversight team and Senator Blumenthal and us are specifically going to do a joint bicameral investigation into what's happening to United States citizens across this country as well. What I've told folks is, look, what's happening to citizens is horrific, but we're also reminding people that what's happening to non-citizens, they also have due process rights. I mean, the Constitution is so clear.
Correct.
And so we have a lot of work to do, but we were in LA with Mayor Bass making that announcement today.
And it's interesting you bring this up. I really wanted to talk to you about what specifically does that mean, right? I think we oftentimes hear in the news, like, we're investigating this, we're looking into this, bicameralism. Could you get specific about, like, what does that literal to-do list look like when you get to the office, right? Like, walk us through it, because I think it's important for people to hear. These words have almost become pointless to a lot of Americans. Oh, we're investigating. Oh, there's an oversight committee. Oh, we're going to be looking into it. I think we've been used and abused in so many ways as Americans that these words have sort of like lost value. So I want people to hear like exactly what you're doing, because I know you, I know your team, I know you've been working on this. And I understand it on like a granular level from the courtroom, but I think it's important for people to hear really what that means for you.
Absolutely. No, this is great, because I love explaining kind of how oversight works.
Yeah.
So I think
process matters, right? Like, what's the process? I think it's so important.
So there's two pieces of this which I think are important. And that is how and who is leading the investigations, and then what we're actually trying to accomplish and do. So let me start by saying, look, I've been the lead Democrat on the Oversight Committee. The Oversight Committee in the U.S. House is the lead investigations committee that exists under a constitution in the U.S. Congress. And so obviously the job of Congress is oversight, and oversight is where most of the major investigations end up. Now, I'm a pretty newer member to the Congress. I was mayor of Long Beach, California for 8 years. I got to Congress now a little over 2 years ago. And so I was not the most senior person to take on this job. Right. And I think in my pitch to the Democratic caucus, I said, look, we have to do things differently. We got to bring change. We need people to be more aggressive. We need to bring that fight that Republicans bring to these investigations. And, the pitched work, I'm the first sophomore to lead a committee in 100 years in the U.S. And I mention that because I think what you said is really true, that oftentimes we will launch an investigation or folks will say they're going to hold folks accountable, and then it just gets lost in kind of Washington speak.
Right. Or we hear about it like 2 years later that they kind of found something, but they weren't really. And it does get kind of lost in the wash there.
It does. And that is not me first. I'm an immigrant myself. And so this is very personal to me. And it's something that I know I've lived through the experience. I've been undocumented. I understand what the lived experience is. And then the second piece is, I think people just should take, I've been the lead on investigations now for about maybe 4 months in the Congress for Democrats. And I show people what we've just done on the Epstein files, for example. Like we are getting so much information out on the Epstein files because we're being aggressive and we're not waiting to be in the majority. And so the way oversight works is when you are in the minority, so Democrats are in the minority in Congress, we have limited powers. We don't have subpoena power. We don't have powers to get any document we want or anyone from the committee, but we still can investigate on our own. And so that's what we're doing now. We're not waiting to be in the majority to investigate. However, when we do win the majority in 2026, you can believe that we will be sending out subpoenas and getting information from Christina and from Stephen Miller, from folks that are causing harm, from Holman, just a variety of folks that we are interested in. But the work has to start now. So that's a little bit about kind of why we have to bring new people into the party and at the table and leading these committees is because a new approach is also needed. And then the second piece is it is still in the minority. These investigations have the enormous ability to also help in many of the court cases that are happening. And so we will partner with folks.
That's just what I was going to say, papering the record, documentation, so that court cases can move forward with that.
Documentation is so important to put out into the public record what's actually happening and what we know. And so many of the successful cases that are happening right now in the courts actually reference or use many of the investigations or the documents that we are requesting of agencies to build the case. And so it's all very important work.
I wanted to ask you, because on this show, we really like to focus on ways that everyday Americans or other attorneys can get involved to do something. I think so much of the internet, so much of the news cycle is doom scrolling. It is getting lost in the weeds. It is, articles about literally how America is headed towards fascism with no actual action items on what people can do, how they can get involved, things that they can do to flex their democratic muscles. Where do you need me, an immigration attorney, right? Like, what would your advice be to me, an immigration attorney, or to me, Mélissa, who is a civically engaged Democrat? Like,
not an attorney, but I care very much about what's happening in my community. I also come from an immigrant family. What can I do?
Where do you need us? Yeah. And I think it's so important that people really hear from leadership, right? Like, what can we be doing, boots on the ground, to support these efforts?
So two things. So one is obviously I'm going to talk specifically about what specifically you can do to help what we're doing on the investigation side. So that's one piece of it. Broadly speaking, I was just right now with maybe 50 kind of immigration community activists and leaders from different groups that are on the ground doing this work right now in Los Angeles. And what they are modeling just the behavior. We're talking about attorneys that are working with immigration groups. We're talking about immigration advocates that are trying to visit these detention centers. We're talking about folks that are doing rapid response on the ground. I talked to folks that are just donors that are donating to kind of these rapid response networks. I talked to faith leaders who are bringing in parishioners who are out communicating and working with families that are oftentimes even too scared to leave their home. And so I have found that in every community, there is a group or people that are actually doing this work, whether it's a local church, whether it's a local immigration organization, whether it's a group of lawyers that are doing some pro bono work or working within the legal defense space. There's a lot of ways to get involved broadly. Specifically, our oversight committee is doing two things where people can get directly engaged. One is in the next few weeks, you're going to hear, we'll put this out. We're going to be launching a massive kind of one-stop ICE and information tracker for the.
That's great.
Okay,
that's so great.
That is going.
We need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need it.
And it doesn't exist right now, and so we want to make sure that we are tracking every instance of abuse and terror that is being right now put out and being done every day by ICE and by Christina and folks. And so we're working on building that right now. And we have some groups that are assisting us with that as well. So folks will be able to submit video information to this tracker so that we can keep all of the information also, and from a national perspective, that's
so important. So as someone who gets so many people reaching out to me for help, that is 90% of the things are just info sharing. You don't actually need an immigration attorney half the time, but just people are just trying to figure out what's going on. And I think that's really important.
Exactly. So that's going to be a way for people to be able to communicate with us directly and send us information so that we have it on and able to share it into the public record. The second piece, and I know this sounds but you said it earlier, just for purposes of winning in the courtroom, we have to not just win and obviously in public opinion, we have to win in the courtroom. And for us to win in the courtroom, and we have to document, and we need to build the case, and it takes work, and it takes putting all this.
It does. It really does for people who don't.
And so, and for us in Congress, that it's critical for us to have all this information. The second piece, which we announced today, is we're going to be launching some field hearings that will be happening in communities across the country. Our very first one is going to be in Los Angeles. We'll be announcing the date, hopefully here in the next week or so.
That'd be great. Share it with us. We can put it out on the channel.
That's great. And with the field hearing is going to be an opportunity for members of Congress and the community to come together and listen to testimony from people in the community. And we're going to also provide ways where folks can do it in a way that thinks that we're keeping their safety in mind as well. But it's going to be an opportunity for there to be the stories, actions that are happening, information that needs to be shared with us. We're going to go into the community as well. And so the very first one will be in Los Angeles. It'll be, I think it's quite exciting. And so that's something also.
That's incredible. Yeah, definitely going into the communities is so important. I mean, so much of what happens in immigrant communities, from my experience, just as a guest, right, is word of mouth. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That is the biggest way. I mean, is family coming from Haiti, that's how we learned about everything. You heard it from someone's aunt, someone's cousin, a friend, church, etc. So that's how you really get the word out. And I think when it comes from your own community, you tend to trust that information, right?
So thank you so much for joining us. I know you're the mayor of Long Beach. We've got a Long Beach here in Long Island. It's a little bit different, but I wanted to say thank you. And the first openly gay immigrant congressman. Is that right?
That's right.
That's all correct? Okay. All right. So who's your favorite drag queen in Long Beach, California? We're going to Venmo her in your honor.
Thank you.
I'm going to Venmo her $100. What's her name?
Oh, Jules Long Beach. Actually, Jules Long Beach is my favorite drag queen in Long Beach.
Jules Long Beach. Okay. Yeah. I can't wait for Jules Long Beach to wake up at 4 p.m. and be like, who the hell is this guy who is sending me
$100? I'll take it.
Congressman Garcia, sending it under Congressman Garcia's name. So Jules Long Beach, go find her on Venmo or Cash App and send her some money. Tip your drag queens. Thank you, Congressman, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for joining us.
We appreciate
your
time.
Will do. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Take good care. Bye-bye.